Today, we delve into a profound debate on the future of global economics and power dynamics, inspired by recent reflections from economist Darrell Strong and international relations expert Merrill Beacon.
Welcome to our special segment. We're joined by Darrell Strong, an economist, and Merrill Beacon, a specialist of international relations, to discuss the worrying trends they have observed in recent history. Darrell, you've noted an accelerating trend that has led some in the U.S. to consolidate what is often framed as its mission to run the world. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Certainly. First of all, you may have noticed that in a recent interview with George Stephanopoulos, President Joe Biden claimed to be running the world. So at least in his mind, that perception exists. More generally, there is a prevailing belief among some U.S. policymakers that, without American leadership, global anarchy would ensue. Or worse, autocratic regimes would be poised to establish a global totalitarian order. This belief has justified a range of actions, from military interventions to economic sanctions, all aimed at maintaining U.S. dominance.
Merrill, you see this trend as particularly dangerous. Can you explain your perspective?
Absolutely. The increasing militarization and the weaponization of the dollar are not just about maintaining order. They are creating what could credibly evolve into a technically fascist world order where technology, especially AI, and the militarized economy dominate all aspects of life. We are witnessing the destruction of traditional economic activities of all sorts, from artisanship to local commerce and even traditional administration. They are all being subjugated to this new order, fundamentally altering the way of life of most of the world's cultures. And this is not done by fiat or force, though that certainly plays a role. It is happening naturally, in a way that favors the concentration of power to the point of total opacity. That seems to me to negate the very concept of democracy.
President Dwight D Eisenhower, just days before leaving office in January 1961, famously warned of the dangers of a military-industrial congressional complex. Today, that warning seems more relevant than ever. Controlled from the U.S., thought not completely by the U.S., this system spreads its influence through the global economy, with the dollar playing a crucial role in funding military endeavors and creating captive markets.
I live in Europe, and perhaps have the kind of distance required to give some perspective. I can affirm that Europe has largely accepted this model, aligning its policies with those of the US. That means accepting blind conformity with policies that actually are not in line with and, in some cases, directly opposed to those nations' real interests. But there are signs of dissent and cracks beginning to appear, even within Europe.
The BRICS bloc is growing as a significant challenge to the logic of this system, proposing an alternative approach to global economics and power dynamics.
What do you think is driving the formation and growth of the BRICS bloc, Merrill?
It's driven by a desire for a multipolar world order, where power isn't concentrated in the hands of a few, but is more evenly distributed. The BRICS nations see the current system as unjust and unsustainable, and they're positioning themselves as a counterbalance.
Amidst all this, the environment itself is emerging as a potential disruptor, with climate change posing unprecedented challenges.
The environmental challenges are indeed significant. They add another layer of complexity to an already fragile system. If the current power structures don't adapt, they risk being overwhelmed by the very forces they seek to control. We exploit the environment for economic reasons, to produce wealth from the resources of the earth. We may easily fail to notice the tipping points beyond which we risk destroying those very sources of wealth and prosperity. At the same time, militarization reduces the ability of groups of people, whether they are nations or broad classes of the population, to modify the power structure that seeks to impose a global order.
And if we have any hope of adapting the order to the social and environmental reality, this will require a fundamental shift in how we view both security and prosperity. Military might and economic dominance aimed at keeping things working the way they were in the past is not enough. The shift has to incorporate sustainability and equitable development.
Thank you, Darrell and Merrill, for your insights.
As these developments unfold, the world watches and waits, hoping for a path that avoids these dire outcomes. Are we capable of managing it? It's going to require a certain amount of heroism. That's something we find in Hollywood movies. But reality may require another form of heroism. Can that new brand of heroism exist in what some see as our declining democracies? It's up to all of us to work together and find a way.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.